Hi guys! Today I have a special treat for you. I was able to talk to the writer and director for Holler, Nicole Riegel. Now, this movie stars Jessica Barden and it is so great. It's such an inspiring movie about like perseverance and doing what you gotta do and family and just there's so many incredible moments in this movie that are truly inspiring. So when I talked to Nicole, I talked to her about her inspiration behind this and found out that it's based on her life. It's almost an autobiography, which is insane to know. And it just makes me appreciate the movie even more, which is why I love talking to the creators behind films and TV shows, because I feel like you just get a deeper appreciation for the movie, which is what Nicole gave me for Holler. You guys, I can't wait for you all to be able to see this movie. It hits select theaters as well as on-demand and digital release Friday, June 11th, and you do not want to miss this one. It's only an hour and a half, and it is so worth your time, guys. I spoke with Nicole not only about the inspiration behind this movie, but also about the fact that it started as a short many years ago and is now a full-length feature film. We talk about that and so much more. So I hope you do enjoy this interview. You guys, before we get into it though, I'd love it if you take 1 second, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if it's your first time here. And if you enjoy the content, be sure to hit that notification bell. Hey, Tessa from Mama's Geeky here. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel. Well, hi Nicole. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me today.
Hi.
I love the movie. I just watched it this morning for the second time. And so in doing a little bit of research, this started off as a short a few years ago. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it started off as a short several years ago. It was, and then it sort of just became it strayed so much from that. And I mean, I think of it as a directing sample, but it did start off as a short. And then it evolved. It evolved into something so different over time.
Yeah,
it's
so
a long journey.
I was gonna say, to go from a short to like a full feature length movie, you've got to add in a whole lot and change the story. So without giving spoilers, of course, can you tell me a little bit about the changes that you had to make in order to make it into a full length feature?
Well, I sort of abandoned the short after, once I started working on the feature, and I just started on a different story set in a scrapyard and kept the title the same. I wanted entirely different characters. Like some names are the same, but I wanted them to be very different, And I really, it had boys in it. And it had boys in it because when we were casting, I couldn't find the right girl. So I made a short film with boys in it, to tell you the truth. And then, people watched that short. They really responded to it. I wanted to make a feature film, but I kept telling everyone, I want to make it personal. I want to actually make a story about my pursuit of an education that's semi-autobiographical, that's going to be one of the first films to be made in Hollywood about like that experience of a young woman in Appalachia that's actually made by a woman who experienced Appalachia, and that this film wasn't a research trip for me. This I lived a lot of this, and I feel like that belongs behind the camera and in front of the camera. And that if someone like me is making that film, it could exist in a more nuanced way. And portray this place in a nuanced way and have like both the grit but also the warmth to it. And that was sort of my vision and my goal with the film. And when I went to financiers to make this movie, and I went to about 70 plus financiers, they were like, well, why can't it be like the short with two boys? Why does it need to be a female lead? And I was like, because that's a totally different lived experience. And I had to walk away from quite a few opportunities because I wouldn't make that change. And so I just went my own path. I was like, this is going to be about me. It's going to be about a young woman in Appalachia trying to pursue an education. And I want to show people how hard it is and all the nuanced struggles that she faces.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask about too. So just how important it is. I love that it's not, something I say about this movie is it's really not afraid to tell it like it is, right? To show this is the truth. This stuff happens. And so the fact that it has happened to you, but how important is it for you to make sure that people know, like, you know, if they're going through this, they're not alone. Like this sort of thing happens and people resort to whatever they can, you know?
Yeah, it's super important. If I had this film when I was 17 years old, I maybe I would have made my film sooner.
Hmm.
You know, maybe I would have felt like there was a Nicole out there, there was someone out there. But you know, at the time, I didn't even see movies really directed by women, like
Yeah.
any women. When that credit came up at the end, the first one I ever saw was, and I watched so many movies, by the way. Like, I mean, I devoured them in movie theaters and libraries and video stores, American cinema, British cinema, Italian neorealist cinema, everything. And I, for some reason, was not coming across women, and they were there. I wasn't finding them because of just the lack of resources that I
Hmm.
had, but also there were so few. And I remember Gina Prince Bythewood's Love and Basketball was the first time it said, you know, written and directed by Gina. And I was like, okay. And that was really cool for me. That did
Yeah.
something, you know? And that kind of representation does matter. And I know we're
Hmm.
saying that now, but I hope it's really sinking in. And but I also didn't see characters like me on screen. I didn't see, if you were a teen girl in the
Hmm.
early 2000s, you were watching, you know, Clueless, which I love, but you were
Clueless is
watching
great.
or Clueless. I mean, it's one of the best films of all time. And I was watching, you know, stories about young women in Los Angeles and in New York, and never working class stories. And if they were about working class girls or stories set in the Midwest, they were about anguish and how awful life is and
Mhm.
how hard it is. And there were no pockets of levity. There no warmth. I never felt like my struggle of about why I wanted to leave, why I couldn't
Mhm.
leave, why it felt like such a family betrayal to leave, and those ties that bind, that just didn't exist on screen. And I felt like it has to come from me, or it's never going to exist.
Well, I'm glad that you've done it because, like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for my girls to be a little older so I can show it to them
Yes, oh,
as
please do.
well. So it's great. But speaking of casting, you said you had cast boys in the short because you really couldn't find the right casting choice. Well, listen, you picked Jessica's fantastic in this. So can you talk about casting her and the process of finding her?
She is fantastic. I found her before End of the Effing World,
I love that.
you know, so I do, we all do. I found her, she was in the process on that show. I hadn't seen the show. She hadn't really, you know, had the fame that she has now. And I met her as sort of, she didn't even live here, she lived in England. And I'm in Los Angeles, and I had a lunch with her at this fancy Mexican restaurant. And I don't like Mexican restaurants to be super fancy. Like, I like, you know, like it's Mexican food, like a taco stand or something, like that kind of Mexican food. And I say this because that's what she brought up in our first meeting. We met at this fancy Mexican place, and we were both sort of like, why is it fancy? And why is it so? And then we bonded over our backgrounds. And she was from a very similar community in England, and we had lived these similar experiences in different countries. And we just bonded over that, you know, with this super fancy guacamole. And it brought us together. And then she auditioned the next morning and dug up my email and sent me something of hers to watch. And it was incredible. And then over the course of making Holler, you know, End of the Effing World took off, and it was really special to watch her sort of, you know, explode over the making of Holler.
Yeah, it's so great. She's so good. I mean, the whole cast is great, and that's something I love about it is it feels real. Like these characters are so believable. It doesn't feel like, you know, they're trying to push to become those characters. It feels
Yeah.
like a real story. It feels like you're watching a real story unfold, which
Yes.
has a lot to do with the directing as well and the writing. And I just absolutely adore the movie. But so what do you want people to take away from watching this film?
I mean, I think that, you know, the takeaway question in movies is so interesting to me, because one of my favorite things about movies is that we all take something different away. And I always meet people who take something away from the film or write about the film in a way that I never intended. That's
Hmm.
amazing. That they find things in the film that I didn't know could be found in the film. So I'll just answer it by saying, like, one aspect that I hope people take away is a more nuanced understanding of why it is so hard for particularly young women in that region to leave and to go just do something like go to college. Like, I think we should all have a right to do, and it shouldn't be that hard to do, hard to get in, but it shouldn't be that hard to have those resources. And I think we forget that that's happening here. Like, we think all those problems exist in other parts of the world, but they are happening here. And I really want people to feel her journey, have an understanding of it, like really have an understanding of it, and look at the place that I'm from in a different light. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with everyone there politically, but I think what the film is saying is that everyone who lives there isn't on that one on the one side of things politically. Like, just really approaching where I'm from in a nuanced way that I don't think Hollywood's really given where I'm from that kind of treatment yet.
Yeah. Well, now they have, and hopefully this goes out and everybody sees it and loves it. It was very, for me, almost reminiscent of like an 8 Mile, where you've got like the family connection and it shows stuff like really true stuff, which is what I really enjoyed about it. And someone trying to break out to pursue their passions. So that was the connection I made. But is there anything that you took inspiration from when writing this?
Oh, yes. A few things. I mean, I'm a massive Andrea Arnold fan. I just, as a stylist, as just a visual artist, I'm so inspired by her, and just how evocative, her filmmaking is, and cinematography. And Barbara Loden's film Wanda was a really big influence on me. And also just, one I don't talk about too often, but just the film Good Will Hunting. Love the film Good Will Hunting.
Great movie. Such a good one. Now I want to watch it. Now I'm like, I haven't seen that movie in a while.
And watch Holler. You'll enjoy it. It was actually the film we watched the night before production began. I like to get the crew and the cast and everyone together in one room, and let's all just have snacks and drink and watch a movie together. And let's watch a movie that's in vein of what we're making, and that rallies us the night before we film. And so we all gathered in the conference room of this big hotel and had snacks and watched Good Will Hunting together.
Oh, I love that. So like we talked about already, this started kind of as a short type thing. So how long was the entire process from like when you were like, had this idea for Holler until now it's out?
We are, as of today, we're at the 5-year mark.
Wow, yeah. 5 years. That's crazy. That's a long time. Well, I'm glad that it's out here, and I'm glad that people are going to be able to see it very soon. And some lucky people have been able to see it because it's been on that festival market. And like I said, I got the screener. I've watched it twice already, and can't wait till my girls are just a little. They're 8 and 9, so I feel like
they're still young.
Give a few years. But they always talk about they want to make movies and they want to do stuff like that. So anytime,
send them my way. We have on Holler. We had young women from the area on the set, just because I think it's important for them to get to watch the process. And I didn't have access to production or a crew. I couldn't watch people do the different jobs, and to sort of observe it and see what it was all about. And so I think that's really important. So
yeah, that would be great. I mean, they said they write little scripts, they make movies themselves already, so they love it. And they always say, can we do it? And I'm like, yes, you can do whatever you want. You can put your mind to it, and you can do it. So
yes, they can, absolutely. And they have another option in their phones that I didn't have at the time. And look, I shoot on film, but I'm if you have nothing else and you have your phone, they can make a film on their phone.
That's awesome. See, you're such a great inspiration for them. So I'm excited for them to get to see this when they're a little bit older. And thank you so much for taking the time today. And I just can't wait for everyone to see this movie. I think it's so important, like you said, right? Let people realize and see this area and see that why sometimes it is hard for people to pursue their dreams. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my interview with Nicole. And again, Holler hits select theaters as well as on-demand and digital release June 11th. If you've already seen Holler by the time you get to this video, let me know your favorite part about it or your thoughts on it down below in the comments. If you haven't, let me know what your favorite part of this interview was. Be sure to give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You can follow me over on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Mama's Geeky over there. MAMASGEEKY. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much to all of my monetary supporters, my members here on YouTube, as well as my patrons. If you haven't joined yet, please consider doing so. We have some really awesome perks, including a monthly Zoom meeting where we get to talk face to face. Thank you again to everyone who supports me.